Women's shelters are about demonizing men, not protecting victims. I'm going to show you proof of this. Here's a beautiful lesbian couple that ran a domestic violence shelter who themselves engaged in domestic violence. No irony at all here, right? Now, before we get into this article, I'm going to show you the founder of women's shelters in England, Erin Pissy, and she's going to admit to us all that many of the women who showed up at that shelter were violence themselves.
I opened in 1971, and I was doing questionnaires with all the mothers coming in. And of the questionnaires, I could see very clearly there were two things happening. One was women who were innocent victims of their partner's violence coming in because they'd made a mistake. And they had come from good, warm, loving families, so they were easy to help. They just needed refuge, legal care, and then rehousing. But the women that really needed help were the of the 100, the 62 who were violent or even more violent than the men they left. They are the ones that needed us.
So 62 out of 100, so over half, were violent or even more violent than the partners that they left. And they're the ones who need Erin Pissy's help the most, not the victims that weren't violent at all. The violent ones need them. So that says something about Pissy to me. Okay. Now, I'm also going to show you that domestic violence is not a women's issue. To be a women's issue, it would have to happen only to women. But listen to this. Because who was Erin Pissy abused by? Her mother.
Now that took me straight back to being a child in Toronto, where I was at school. And my mother had beaten me with the ironing cord the night before. And I had scars all over my legs and scabs. And the teacher said, "What happened to you?" And I looked at her and I said, "My mother beat me." And she said, "Well, no wonder you're such an awful child."
See what I'm talking about? So it's her mother who committed violence against her. And it was a female teacher that dismissed it. So child abuse definitely was institutionalized, you know. This is not a women's issue. It never has been. If anything, it's a man's issue because men are ignored as victims. Okay? Now, I want to show you one last thing. Look at this photo that says it all. You know, VAWA, right? This is a women's group, in other words, a man-hating group. And it has this little girl that says, future woman. She doesn't have a sign saying, little girls are human beings too. He says, I'm a future woman. It doesn't matter that they don't care about children. It doesn't matter that she's a little girl. It only matters that someday she'll be a grown woman. So that's what these women's groups think about. They think about demonizing men and making sure the children know that they're unimportant as well. That's what that is about. There. Now we can get into our abusive relationship of the lesbian couple there. Abusive mother of two, 31. Okay, she's a mother of two, right? And which means what? They're probably getting sperm donors. So think about this, guys. Don't donate your sperm, period. Because your sperm is producing children, and those children are being taken care of by abusive parents. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, of course, but I mean is you don't know who's going to get a hold of your children, right? Anyway, abusive mother of two, 31, who helped run refuge for battered women, is jailed after driving her 30-year-old nurse wife to the brink of suicide by attacking and bullying her for over a 5-year period. There you go. Lesbians relationships have the highest rate of violence in them. Oh, by the way, all you guys who want to like cope and say, you know, the feminists and these women are all ugly, overweight, dyed haired, you know, Women, take a good look. These are lookers, right? Now, now, Rita Arajo, 31, subjected Rose Garnet Jones, 30, to regular beatings during their relationships, then guilt tripped her by threatening her to kill herself if she went to the police. Okay, so this is a dysfunctional lesbian relationship, right? And these beatings were regular. Okay. The court heard the pair had begun dating in 2017, married, and had two children together. The relationship soon turned sour. Yeah, there was no man to boss around. So this woman couldn't just use social dominance on her. She had to get physical. That's how it works. And neither of these women cared about their children because look, Miss Garnet Jones had been attempting to talk to her when Arajo barricaded herself in the bedroom, repeatedly to threaten to kill herself and smashed a tower fan against the floor in the bed in front of their baby son. See? So the children don't matter. They're just objects that these women own, right? And this woman, she didn't grab the baby later or called services and leave. Because what she was there was to be in relationship with this abusive woman, period. Now, I'm going to repeat what's important about the sperm donor thing. Don't donate your sperm. Because Arajo, look, during one assault, Arajo, who was pregnant at the time with the couple's youngest child, used her forearm to throttle Miss Garnet Jones until she could barely breathe. Afterwards, she would not allowed, let's see, no, here. Miss Garnet Jones refused to fight back for fear of hurting the unborn child and reported suffering severe pain. So this woman who was pregnant, the woman who was doing the assaulting was pregnant. And that's who's bearing some man's child. And she doesn't give a shit about that child. She's going to engage in fisticuffs while pregnant. And of course, Miss Garnet Jones, who's a complete coward, hides behind the child. I didn't want to hurt the unborn child. No. Obviously, a Rajo or a Rajo, however you say her name, was physically dominant over this woman, and she scared her and she didn't want to fight back. She was afraid of getting beaten more, right? That's what was going on there. Okay. So the police finally got involved, right? After she threatened to jump off the bridge. This woman could have just killed herself with sleeping pills or something, but she had to make this a spectacle. So why didn't she just go to the police in the first place, right? No, she wanted like their attention. Please come and rescue me. Jeez, just pathetic. I'll show you how these anti-male court systems treat abusers when they are women. This is a judge talking about Arajo. I don't know how to actually say your name, Arajo or whatever, but he says, you are clearly an intelligent woman, highly thought of by those who know you, and you have been, for a great deal, a time a positive member of society working in a very difficult, stressed environment. You see, do men who beat up their wives get this kind of praise by the judge? They might get their defense lawyer saying stuff like this, but not the judge. The judge will say, you're a subhuman, you're going to jail forever, right? So, but the main takeaway of this, guys, is what? Is what? Is that shelters were formed by feminist women who hate men, and they're there to demonize men, not to protect women. These two women ran a shelter, and this woman was an abuser herself. They're strictly to make sure that fathers don't get any say with their children. The mother can run away to a shelter with their children, make some excuse up, and bar him, estrange him from the children. That's what this is about. So know it. That's what this is about.